Welcome to Born for a Reason. The $100 Startup by Chris Gilbo. This channel is all about learning, growth, and turning small ideas into big success. Subscribe and let's grow together. Part 3. Leverage and Next Step. 11. Moving on up. Tweaking your way to the bank. How small actions create big increases in income. Remind people that profit is the difference between revenue and expense. This makes you look smart. Scott Adams. Over and over, the subjects of our case studies discussed how growing the business wasn't nearly as hard as starting the business. It took a while to find something that worked, a common statement began, but once we were rolling, we gained traction and quickly took off. As we saw with Nick's story in Chapter 6, the guy who was thrilled about selling his first $50 print. Sometimes the first sale is the hardest but also the most rewarding. Several others said much the same thing. The day I got my first sale was when I knew the business was going to work out. Everything that came afterward was reinforcement of the initial success. I call it the first $1.26 is the hardest principle, because one day many years ago I made my first $1.26 with a new project while on a layover in Brussels. I couldn't afford a single Belgian waffle on the day's take, but I had a good feeling about the future. In this chapter, we'll look at ways to move on up by increasing income in an existing business. How does this happen? No doubt there are a few different factors. Momentum is important, as is the ongoing attention of the business owner. The longer a micro-business is around, with customers and onlookers saying good things about it, the more the word will spread. In addition to these natural factors, a series of small, regular actions is all it takes for many businesses to go from zero to hero in a short period of time. These actions are called tweaks. Nev Lapwood was a classic ski bum. He lived in Whistler, British Columbia, and worked off and on in restaurants at night while snowboarding during the day. Life was basic but good, until the limited employment ended when Nev was laid off. Needing to make ends meet, he began offering snowboard lessons, a part-time gig that was highly valued by his students. Teaching students in person on the Whistler slopes was fun and rewarding, but it also had a number of built-in unavoidable limitations, lots of competition, relatively few clients, and limited times of year when he could work. Nev knew that people all over the world wanted to learn about snowboarding. What if he could teach them all virtually, without needing to be in the same place? Getting his act together, Nev worked with a couple of close friends to create Snowboard Addiction, a worldwide series of snowboarding tutorials. It was an instant hit, drawing customers from 20 countries and making $30,000 in year one. Not bad for a ski bum. Since Nev had never been that focused on making money, that was the highest annual income he had ever had at that point. The next year, he put more thought into the business, scaling up with affiliates and a broader range of products. The result, just under $100,000 in net income. Nev was still on the slopes during the day but worked closely with his new partners during the downtimes to scale the business even further. The next plan was foreign language translation. Snowboard Addiction went out around the world in 9 languages, with more versions scheduled to roll out based on customer demand. Naturally, the growing business had its challenges. An untrained and accidental entrepreneur, Nev had to learn a lot about strategy, accounting, and marketing. Stickers that were ordered from China arrived months late and in an unusable condition. Just 2 years in, however, the business was on track to earn at least $300,000. As we've heard over and over in other stories, Nev speaks proudly of his new independence. Frankly, starting this business after being laid off has been the best decision of my life, he says. The greatest benefit has been the freedom and ability to do what I like. My plan is to travel for 6 months of every year and run the business for the other 6 months of each year. And of course, while he's running the business, he still finds plenty of time to hit the slopes. Tweaking your way to the bank, the big picture. The not so secret to improving income in an existing business is through tweaks, small changes that create a big impact. If a product typically has a 1.5% conversion rate, and you increase the rate to 1.75%, the difference adds up to a lot of money as time goes on. If a business normally attracts 4 new customers a day and begins attracting 5, the impact is tremendous. Not only is the business now earning 25% more income, it has diversified its customer base asterisk. If you grow your traffic a little and also increase your conversion rate a little while also increasing the average sales price a little, your business grows a lot. These are the most important areas on which to focus your tweak efforts, so let's look at them closely. Increase traffic. Whether you have a website or a storefront, without people who regularly drop by to see your offer, you have no business. Traffic means attention. How much attention is your business getting? I heard from a new business owner who was disappointed in the results of her first product launch because only 4 people had purchased. How many prospects were on your list? I asked. I'm not entirely sure, she said. Maybe 100. I said I was impressed, because 4% is a great conversion rate for many businesses. The problem wasn't getting more of her limited audience to purchase. It was getting more of an audience in the first place. The best thing to do in this situation is to focus on increasing traffic, thereby bringing in more potential customers. Increase conversion. Once you have a stable base of attention, whether measured in site traffic or another way, you'll want to look closely at the conversion rate, the percentage of prospects who become customers. The classic way to increase the conversion rate is through testing by measuring one copywriting attempt, or offer, or headline, or something else, against another and going with the winner. Traffic rightward arrow A/B test rightward arrow compare results. After you have a winner, you move on to another test, always challenging the champion against another idea. Google Optimizer allows you to do this for free. This can indeed be a good strategy. One tip, however, it may be more important to pay close attention to where customers come from than to what you can do to convert them once they arrive. Testing is important, but it pales in comparison to the traffic source. Author and entrepreneur Ramit Sethi told me, people love to spend time split testing headlines, copy, graphics, even tiny boxes. They can usually achieve greater returns by focusing on the source. Increase average sales price. If you can increase the average sales price per order, this will increase your bottom line, just as increasing traffic or conversion will. You can do this most easily through upsells, cross-sells, and sales after the sale. If you shop on Amazon.com, you've probably seen its related items and customers who bought this item also bought these items features. These features are highlighted, and widely replicated elsewhere, for a simple reason, they work extremely well. The difference between upsells, cross-sells, and sales after the sale is illustrated below. After the sale. How it work. Special offer made to customers immediately after sale. Message. Thanks, this additional one-time offer is only for customers. A good shopping cart and payment processor will allow you to add these items easily. If yours doesn't, it's time to change services. Sell more to existing customers. Your existing customers are likely to respond to sales, promotions, or additional offers of any kind. By reaching out to them more frequently, you'll almost certainly bring in additional income. You'll want to be careful about not pushing them too much, but the key is balance. Your customers want to hear from you. They have given you money in exchange for something they value. Make it easy for them to do so again and again. Tweaking your way to the bank, all the details. When I talked with business owners about the kind of tweaks they worked on, many said things such as the most important thing is to keep taking action. Others mentioned setting aside half an hour every morning to work strictly on business improvements before diving into the actual running of the business. All of this sounds good, but it also begs the question, if you decide to take action, what does action look like? How do you spend your daily half hour on business improvements? Here are some common examples of action-based tweaking. Create a Hall of Fame. Shine a spotlight on your best customers, let them tell their own stories about how they've been helped through your business. It helps to provide a variety of stories, as people will relate to different perspectives and backgrounds. This provides social proof that your product or service works for all kinds of people. Institute a new upsell. Adding a good upsell offer or several is probably the easiest and most powerful strategy you can use to ramp up your average order size. Some business owners are initially apprehensive about upsells, not wanting to apply a high-pressure or sleazy technique. But a good upsell isn't sleazy at all, it's contextually appropriate and inspires appreciation from customers. "Wow, thanks for the offer," is a common response. Think about going to a restaurant where you hadn't planned on eating dessert, but the waiter's recommendation of the chocolate bread pudding is so compelling that you have to try it, and it's delicious. You were successfully upsold, and you were happy about it? The confirmation page that appears after an online purchase is one of the best and most underused places for an upsell offer. Right after a customer has purchased, they are highly inclined to purchase something else. Make a strong offer here, and your conversion rate can be 30% or higher. Encourage referrals. Most people know that word of mouth is the greatest source of new business, but instead of waiting for something to happen, you can encourage your customers to spread the word when asking for referrals. It helps to be specific. Can you send our offer to 3 of your friends, or can you like our page on Facebook? Might be a good fit. Again, the confirmation page after a purchase is a good place to do this, in addition to a mailing sent a few days later. Hold a contest. As mentioned in Chapter 9, some people become extremely motivated about contests and giveaways. Find a way to give away a prize and invite people to compete. The bigger the prize or the more unique the contest, the better. You may not make a ton of sales from a contest, but it will bring you more attention and a greater audience for future sales. Introduce the most powerful guarantee you can think of. Most businesses have boring guarantees. If you don't like this, you'll get your money back. But when we buy something, our money isn't all we're concerned with. We're also concerned about time and validation. If I have to return something, will it be a pain in the ass? Make it the opposite of a pain in the ass. Some businesses provide a guarantee of 110%, ensuring that the burden is on the business to deliver. Zappos famously created free shipping both ways to take away the hesitation about buying shoes without trying them on. A host of competitors had to follow suit. Alternatively, make a big deal about offering no guarantee. Instead of providing an incredible guarantee, provide no guarantee and make a big deal about this fact. Note that this strategy usually works better for high-end products. It will likely decrease overall sales but increase the commitment level from those who do purchase. Ironically, people who pay for high-end products tend to be better customers all around. Low-paying buyers are the worst, one business owner who sold a broad range of products at different prices told me. We have far more complaints from people who pay $10 and expect the world than from those who pay $1,000. I've noticed a similar effect in my own business, with people buying the lower priced version of something, generating a much higher rate of customer service issues than those who buy the higher priced version. The key lesson in all these ideas is to always be experimenting. Try new things and see what happens. Product to service, service to product. Another easy thing many existing businesses can do to add a new revenue source quickly is to create a service from a product-based business or create a product from a service-based business. Remember the story about the restaurant in Chapter 2? Most people go to a restaurant so they can relax and let the staff serve them. But others really are interested in how the cooking works, so restaurants sometimes offer cooking classes to show off their favorite recipes and create more loyalty among frequent diners. The key is that the lessons are held on Saturday or Sunday afternoons, times when the restaurant is closed or not very busy. Saturday night is reserved for the main event of regular dining. If you have a product business, ask yourself this question: my product is X, how can I teach customers about Y? Then create a new version of your offering that includes consulting, coaching, a jumpstart session, premium technical support, or something else. Make it clear that customers don't need the service, they can get by on their own with just the product. But for those who are interested in some extra hand-holding, the service is available and waiting for them. Perry Marshall, a Chicago-based business consultant, made the switch from product to service by offering an educational course based on knowledge he usually shared through a one-time product. Perry had written a popular report that sold multiple copies every day for $50 each. He was also busy offering one-on-one personal consulting, but one day someone gave him an idea: everyone who buys this report loves it, but they don't always know how to implement what you teach. They also don't need your high-end one-on-one consulting, so why not offer a series of jumpstart workshops that people could take as a group? Perry wasn't sure at first but decided to give it a try. When the idea generated more than $1 million for his small firm, he was astounded. Alternatively, if you operate a service-based business, consider how you can introduce a productized version of the service. My designer, Reese B. Kerman, does work that is so great that when word got out, a lot of people began noticing and asking her for quotes. It didn't take long for Reese to have far more inquiries than she could handle. Reese's husband, Jason, manages the inquiries that come in every day, and he noticed that they fit into 3 categories. Category 1, prospects with significant money to spend who would likely be good clients. In these cases, Jason consulted with Reese, agreed to accept the clients if they still wished to proceed, and issued them a quote for the requested work. Category 2, prospects who didn't have any money to spend, designers receive a lot of. These queries, unfortunately, or people who just weren't the right fit for Reese's work. In this case, Jason politely declined the request and encouraged them to look elsewhere. These 2 categories were fairly straightforward, and as hundreds of inquiries came in over the course of an average year, Jason became astute in telling right away which group someone was in. But there was another, 3rd category that was more complicated. Category 3, prospects who had some money to spend, were nice people with interesting projects, and didn't need a completely custom solution. The 3rd category was complicated because Reese and Jason didn't want to send them away, but they also didn't want to take on an excessive number of projects, thus limiting Reese's design time for key clients. They did some careful subcontracting, but they didn't want to become a low-end provider or farm out much of the work to others. After considering different options, Reese and Jason decided to create a series of themes and website headers that customers could purchase for a flat rate. These options weren't the same as a genuinely custom-crafted site design, but they were a lot better than everything else on the market. Providing both a product and a service helps with your marketing as well. You can say to prospects, "Hey, my service costs a lot of money because everything is customized. But if you just need a general solution, you can get this version for much less." Some customers will still want the customized solution, but this way you don't shut the door on others who like the idea but can't afford the high-end work. What sets Happy Knits apart? An examination of a thriving retail practice. How does a retail establishment thrive when those around it struggle? Welcome to Happy Knits, a yarn store and internet retailer based in the trendy southeast area of Portland, Oregon. Here are 5 ways Happy Knits stands out. A welcoming space. Knitters are welcome to stay for hours, whether shopping or knitting. Guests who happen to be accompanying knitters, usually husbands or children, are also welcome to hang out, sit in comfy chairs, and use the free Wi-Fi while the knitter of the family looks around. Most, though not all, knitters are women. A clear online strategy. Most retail stores have a website, but few combine a physical location with an online shopping experience as well as Happy Knits does. Online is limitless, says store owner Sarah Young. Even with a large retail space, online sales from around the world constitute more than half the sales. She works the system by maintaining close ties with Ravelry, a social network specifically for knitters, and providing frequent email updates and offers to previous customers. Great displays, in-store, and great photos, online. Display, color, and placement are important, so Happy Knits includes a staging area for professional photos in a back room of the store. I ask Sarah why she doesn't just use the photos provided by the manufacturer the way other stores do. Because they're not good enough, she told me. We try to do everything here with a focus on quality. Exclusive deals. By working with yarn companies as partners, Happy Knits creates exclusivity that is hard to emulate. You might think this is an unfair advantage, but the companies offered these deals to Sarah because her customers said such good things about the store and because she is careful to pay vendors on time. Lesson: to get an unfair advantage, provide remarkable service. Love for customers. Every order sent by mail includes a personalized thank you note from an employee, encouraging customers to call if they need help with a pattern, plus free samples of other products. If an item is backordered because of a computer glitch, an employee will call the customer proactively to apologize and ask if she would like a substitution. Be nice to people and provide a great service may not sound like much of a differentiation, but all these things add up. Whether you have a retail store or not, you could learn something from Happy Knits. Note to service providers: raise prices regularly. You might expect that a price increase has a tendency to filter some customers away from the business while making up for the loss with higher overall income. Sometimes this is indeed the case, but many of the service providers I talked with were surprised that almost no one left after an increase. Several said that when they told their customers or clients about the increase, the response was, "It's about time. You're worth more than you've been charging." When your clients complain about the price being too low, you should listen. Andy Dunn is a developer in Belfast, Northern Ireland. He left his day job after pitching a web application to a CEO. Crucially, Andy didn't just pitch an idea, he had the idea and then acted on it by creating the entire app and sending it over to the CEO, requesting approval. Impressed, the CEO called him up to say thanks, and even agreed to underwrite the expenses for some additional features. Out on his own, Andy had no problem attracting new business, but he did have a big problem with pricing. Wanting to appear attractive to prospective clients, he priced his services so low that they were unprofitable. In one case he ended up several thousand euros in debt by bidding too low and then outsourcing part of the work. After that experience, he knew he'd have to make a change. The change came in the form of a 25% raise, something he was initially afraid to do, but he was greatly relieved after it was done. The simple act of raising my rates by 25% allowed me to either work 7 hours less a week or make a significant increase in my monthly income, he told me on a Skype call from Belfast. The other, unexpected benefit was that it gave me much more confidence. Until I upped the rates, I didn't make the connection that I was worth more than I had been charging. Andy's story was repeated in various forms by other service providers. 12 How to franchise yourself. Instructions: cloning yourself for fun and profit. I'm not a businessman. I'm a business man. Jay-Z. As business models go, buying a franchise that is based on someone else's company is usually a bad idea. The basic buy our franchise pitch runs like this: raise $250,000 by withdrawing your life savings, borrowing from family members, and maxing out your credit cards. Pay most of that money up front to a company that will generously allow you to work for it. Operate the business precisely the way they tell you, with no exceptions allowed. Every decision, from whom you hire to what services you offer to where you locate your store, is made by the company. They'll even tell you what color shirt you are required to wear in your own business. If the business succeeds, you'll make an average of $47,000 a year after scraping by for 3 years on the same 50-hour work weeks you could spend at someone else's company with a lot less stress. In this winning scenario, your ultimate success won't be that you started a business, you'll have bought yourself a job. If the business fails, which happens more often than most franchise companies want to admit, the company will take back the store from you and resell it to someone else. When they do this, they won't count your failure as a store closure in their statistics. Thus, when you hear statistics that suggest a high percentage of franchise locations remain open, you have no idea who is operating them and who owes $250,000 that they have no way to repay. How does that proposal sound to you? Probably not so great, which is why buying into someone else's operation isn't usually the opportunity it may seem from the outside. Thankfully, there's an alternative: building a real business of your own, something that you have ownership of and control over. Buying into someone else's franchise isn't usually a good idea, but figuring out how to leverage your own efforts is almost always worth careful consideration. You're only one person, or maybe two. Who says you can't be in more than one place at one time? In fact, there are several ways to grow a business through the use of leverage. Franchising yourself isn't just doing more, it's about taking your skills, activities, and passions to a higher level to create better returns. The difference between franchising yourself and just doing more is that you take the time to be strategic. Let's look at a couple of examples. Natalie Lucy was an up-and-coming software engineer. Originally from Quebec, she had interned in Silicon Valley and now had the chance to take a big job on Wall Street. Her family said it was the job of her dreams, but as Natalie thought more about it, she realized it was the job of someone else's dreams. Turning down the offer, she returned to Canada and decided to pursue a different idea. Natalie had a personal success story of dramatically improving her health after switching to a raw foods diet. Eating only fruits, vegetables, and nuts sounded crazy at first, but the results spoke for themselves. In the first month, she lost more than 10 pounds and suddenly had energy throughout the day. As she talked with her friends, Natalie was a natural evangelist, not pushy or judgmental, but offering tips and strategies that people could use to make real improvements even if they weren't ready to jump into a completely raw diet as Natalie had done. After relocating to Toronto, the idea was to build a small business helping other people make the adjustment to raw foods. Being a software engineer, and a self-described geek like Brett Kelly in Chapter 4, Natalie programmed a database, set up an app, and built her own website. The first incarnation was Raw Food Switch, which correctly represented the concept but seemed a bit boring. One day Natalie noticed that the same letters and therefore the same website could be rendered as Raw Food Switch, leading to a new theme. Dressing in character with a pointed black hat for photo shoots, she rebranded the whole business around herself. Natalie created programs, one-time products, and individual consultation sessions in the same way we've seen others do throughout the book. Raw Foods, which grew into a $60,000 business after the first year. What's not to love? Just one thing: from the outside, she told me at a vegetarian restaurant in Toronto, it looked like all I talked about was raw foods. No one realized I had done all the programming and really enjoyed the intersection of business and technology. The second business came about unexpectedly after Natalie began getting tech inquiries from her raw foods clients who were also creating businesses. She decided to create a separate brand for tech consulting, operating under her own name instead of the moniker she used in the other business. Raw Foods, which is still a powerful brand. Friends and clients report that other shoppers have mentioned her in the grocery store when they see a cart full of avocados, but she restructured the business to run on 80% autopilot. It still brings in a good income, but now Natalie spends her time building the second business. Instead of doing one or the other, Natalie effectively franchised herself. After Natalie set up the tech consultancy, she had to go back to the raw foods business and make some changes. The business had always been dependent on new products and launches, and since her focus was now elsewhere, she had to reduce that dependency, while ensuring that it would produce income on a more regular basis. Across the border and a few states away, Brooke Thomas founded New Haven Rolfing, a holistic health practice. The clinic attracts a clearly defined group of clients, people who want to address chronic pain and mobility problems. No one comes to see Brooke when they're feeling great. By the time they arrive at New Haven Rolfing, many have gone through a long list of other treatments that haven't helped. Brooke is a testimony to the treatment she provides. She became pain-free through Rolfing after 23 years, having lived her whole life to that point with problems related to a birth injury. Before she moved to Connecticut, Brooke operated similar businesses in California and New York. With each move she learned a little more about what to do and what to avoid. Opening the same kind of business in different cities was insightful. After moving to New Haven, she had filled her client list within 4 weeks, and then she took on a partner to manage additional appointments. A single mother with a young child, Brooke works part-time but still earns more than $70,000 a year from the practice. Repeated success in different cities involved getting to know other care providers, and Brooke noticed that some were more business savvy than others. By using her real-world experience, Brooke created Practice Abundance, a training program for other wellness providers. Offering a series of support modules and a community forum, Practice Abundance was a business course that focused strictly on ways to improve a practice. Other resources took a very traditional approach. In Brooke's words, they assume that everyone wants to get an MBA, when the reality is that most of them just want to run their practice better. Brooke had diversified to 2 groups of people, those she served through individual care, and her fellow caregivers who could benefit from non-MBA business advice. Both Natalie and Brooke found a way to reach 2 different audiences, a core group and a related group. As a business grows and the business owner begins itching for new projects, he or she essentially has 2 options for self-made franchising. Option 1, reach more people with the same message. Option 2, reach different people with a new message. Either option is valid, and both can be rewarding. For the first option, it may be helpful to think of the hub and spoke model when building a brand, especially online. In this model, the hub is your main website, often an e-commerce site where something is sold, but it could also be a blog, a community forum, or something else. The hub is a home base with all the content curated by you or your team and ultimately where you hope to drive new visitors, prospects, and customers. The spokes, also known as outposts, are all the other places where you spend your time. These places could include social networking sites, the comments section of your blog or other blogs, actual meetings or networking events, or something else. You can see. The goal for each of the outposts is to support the work of the home base, not usually the outpost itself. It can be a trap to spend too much time with any of the outposts, because things change. Some outposts become less popular over time. You also own the content and work you create in the home base, whereas most of what happens in an outpost is owned by another company. Disaster and recovery. Stuck in Mali again edition. As a full-time freelance photographer based in Accra, Ghana, Niani Kwarmine is no stranger to adventure. In West Africa, there are few laws that are widely followed, especially when it comes to copyright and intellectual property. Most of the time, everything works out, but not always. Here's how Niani tells the story. When I was just starting out, I shot a couple of small jobs for a Ghanaian creative agency. Shortly thereafter I got a call from them asking if I could do an urgent shoot for a new client, necessitating travel to a couple of countries in the region. The deadline was really tight, it was a get the call today and leave in the morning kind of thing, and even the details of exactly where we would be going remained in flux until the last minute. Having shot for the agency before, they had seen and signed my contracts previously, and I made the mistake of thinking they understood how I work and the basis on which I was undertaking this job. So in the rush I omitted to get the paperwork squared away, and off we went. The shoot went really well, and I produced what I consider to be some very strong work. All was well until we were on a rural road far from any city or airport. While we were driving along, the client demanded copyright of the images not part of the deal as far as I was concerned and threatened to have me detained at a remote border in a politically unstable nation unless I handed them over. Not wanting to sample the hospitality of the local gendarmes, I conceded and lost some of the strongest images I had shot to date. I learned my lesson, though. Next time, be sure to get the paperwork done first. Partnership, how 1 + 1 = 3. One path to franchising yourself is to team up with a trusted partner. This doesn't mean you completely merge your business with that person. In fact, the easiest and most common way to partner with someone is to create a joint venture. In this arrangement, 2 or more people join forces to collaborate on a single new project. Carol and Adam's fire sale project, described in Chapter 8, is a joint venture. In other arrangements, an all-new business is created that is jointly owned by the partners. That's what Patrick McCran and Rich Strauss did. They were both high-end performance coaches for athletes and decided to team up to create Endurance Nation, a training program and community for triathletes. They divide responsibilities on the basis of what they're each good at. Patrick calls all the new members on the phone to welcome them, and Rich crafts an online training plan for them. However it's structured, the goal of a partnership is to grow beyond what each person can create on his or her own. Ralph Hildebrandt operates an international professional services firm based in Stuttgart, Germany. Here's how he explains why 1 + 1 = 3. My rule of thumb is that a successful partnership, or any type of collaboration, should create a combined business which is at least 33% larger than the sum of what the two individuals could achieve on their own. People are often inclined to think that distributing work to a few others is what partnership is about, Ralph continued. But that is just subcontracting. True partnership must create more than just a divided list of tasks. Courtesy of Pamela Slim, a coach, author, and expert on partnerships, here's an abbreviated list of decisions you should make at the beginning of any joint venture. How will the money be divided? Common splits include an even 50-50, 60-40 with the higher share going to the partner who does more work, and 45-45 with 10% reserved for administrative costs. What are the responsibilities of each partner? What kind of information is shared between partners? How will the project be jointly marketed? How long will our agreement be in place? How often will we touch base to discuss the partnership? Check out the one-page partnership agreement for a simple way to spell out basic agreements between two parties. One-page partnership agreement. Keep it simple. Remember that the relationship is the most important part. Choosing to keep it strong and trusting is more important than having the right clauses and legal language. Many of our subjects report doing business for large amounts of money on a long-term basis without any contracts at all. Here's a starting point. You should consult a qualified third party if you'd like to define your obligations more clearly or if you're concerned about something. Partners, Partner 1 and Partner 2. These partners agree to collaborate in good faith on a mutually beneficial project known as project name. Overview, summary of project, including outcomes and expected results. Revenue sharing, net income for the project will be split on the basis of percentage% to Partner 1 and percentage% to Partner 2. All minor costs associated with the project will be deducted prior to calculating net income. If any particular cost exceeds amount, both partners must approve the decision. Life of revenue sharing agreement. The revenue sharing agreement will last for a period of time, at the end of which the partners will decide if it should be continued, discontinued, or revised. Publication and sale. The project will be offered for sale on websites and any other sources. Customer support. Partner 1 will be responsible for duties. Partner 2 will be responsible for duties. Project feedback from customers will be shared between both parties. Marketing. Both parties will actively market the project to ensure its success. This will include promotion on websites, through each partner's online community and offline networks, and each party requesting coverage of the project from other influential websites. Timeline. The partners agree to complete all aspects of the project to prepare for launch on date. The battle of outsourcing. Jamila Tazewell followed a common path after graduating from art school. She waited tables in New York City while dreaming of something else. Fortunately, waiting on tables was the only waiting she did. She also took action to start a business. She started by making outlandish handbags and unique wallets. I was convinced I would magically become an accessories star overnight, she says, initially assuming that a fashion house would see her products and offer to distribute them. Then I saw I could actually sell my handbags and wallets myself. That's when I decided to pursue the opportunity further. Jamila headed west to Los Angeles to sell her accessories full-time without relying on a waitress job to pay the bills this time. It worked, but only just barely. She did everything herself, and the business struggled to find its feet. She was glad she no longer waited tables, but as with buying someone else's franchise, Jamila felt like she bought herself a job. 3 years in, Jamila was ready to make a change. She hired a local seamstress to make the product under her supervision, a move she describes as challenging but necessary. After that, she brought in someone to do the printing and shipping as well. This was a big step that required a brutal process of trial and error, but getting the product out of my home office was incredibly liberating. It felt like my child was finally old enough to go off to boarding school or something. Interestingly, this perspective is not universally accepted. Several other topics covered in the study resulted in a wave of similar responses. Many members of our group spoke of bootstrapping and limited business plans in the same way, and the connection between freedom and value was a key theme for almost everyone. But there was one topic that resulted in a wave of divergent opinions. That topic was employing contractors or virtual assistants, also known as outsourcing. On this topic, input ranged from love it to hate it to it's complicated. For every story like Jamila's that told of partnership leading to freedom, I heard a contrasting story from someone who was much happier deliberately keeping the business to themselves, without outsourcing or hiring. Let's look at a few examples of the different camps. Pro-outsourcing. The camp in favor of outsourcing can be represented with the following statements from business owners who came to view their release from tasks and responsibility as a freeing decision. Hiring employees was my biggest challenge as a business owner. I put it off for years, and turned away tens of thousands of dollars each year because I was afraid to grow. Finally, I realized that I had hit a ceiling. I couldn't make any more money without bringing some members to my team. Since changing the structure, I'm able to accept all of the orders I had had to turn away. I'm no longer overbooked, and I can invest extra time in moving the business forward in other aspects. Do I wish I could do it all myself? I used to, because I don't like to lead or be led. I don't like to feel like the boss. But I am so much happier now as part of a team. I'm the pilot of my business, and my crew is there to make my work easier while fulfilling their own goals as well. Megan Hunt, read more about Megan in Chapter 3. Our aim has always been to have 0 employees in order to avoid the expense, complex legal issues, and inflexibility. However, our warehousing operation is completely contracted out. All stock receipts, storage, processing, pick, pack, and dispatch is taken care of by our logistics partners, We just send the orders. We use freelance sales agents, who are paid on commission only. We use virtual assistants for telephone answering when we are unavailable. Jonathan Pincus, read more about Jonathan in Chapter 14. We contracted with an outside printer to make our first run of maps, and it was the best decision we have ever made. Our business would literally not exist if we had tried to print the maps on our own. As demand has increased, our printers have been able to provide us with additional inventory. We never would have been able to print large quantities of posters while maintaining our full-time jobs and tending to a growing business. We are also happy that our business can support the work of other artisans. Jen Adrian and Omar Nouri, read more about Jen and Omar in Chapter 6. These quotes are representative of others who have all said similar things. Outsourcing increases freedom and allows a business to scale without the owners doing everything themselves. Case 2: Anti-outsourcing. The camp opposed to outsourcing can be represented with the following statements from business owners who believed that expansion would be difficult, undesirable, or otherwise limiting of the freedom they had achieved through the business. I'm at the point where I need to find a way to grow my ability to respond to customer demand, but I struggle with concerns over reputation to the extent that I turn over bookings to employees or contractors. I've been offered partnerships, but I turn them down because either I have concerns over the quality of the partner or because the partner wants a referral commission. I could easily raise my price and provide the commission, but I know I wouldn't be happy working for less. And thus I haven't grown further, though I'm comfortable with that for now. Gary Leff, read more about Gary in Chapter 3. I actually prefer not to work with contractors, employees, or assistants. My business succeeds on the fact that it is intentionally small. I can fit my whole business into a backpack and take it wherever I go. No office, no stationery, no administrative staff. Keeping my overhead to zero has lowered the risks and kept profits high. Adam Westbrook. Adam operates a design services business from the United Kingdom. I'm big on keeping the company lean and mean. I'm the only employee, and I work out of my home. We used to own a retail business where paying rent, insurance, and 12 employees came ahead of our own paychecks. Those days are over. Simply put, I don't like getting paid last. Jaden Hare, read more about Jaden in Chapter 2. My experiences with outsourcing work to remote contractors left me spending nearly as much time managing the work as it would to actually do it myself. I've yet to find a nice balance of being able to hire someone to work on a project and making a reasonable profit without spending too much time on it myself. Andy Dunn, read more about Andy in Chapter 11. My motto: never have a boss and never be a boss. Since age 22, this has been my situation. I have an accountant, because number crunching is my biggest weakness. Otherwise, I am a company of one. I can always vouch for my own work, and my integrity means the world to me. Brandy Agerbeck, read more about Brandy in Chapter 7. As with the pro-outsourcing camp, these quotes are representative of many others. Lee Williams Deming mentioned that her importing business formerly had 5 employees and hundreds of overseas suppliers. It now has only 1 employee and a smaller supplier network. Trust me, she wrote in an email, we're better off in every way with a much smaller team. Although I know it's not the best fit for everyone, I tend to fall into the anti-outsourcing camp in my own business. Instead of sending out projects to everywhere, I've chosen to keep a very small team and do only limited contracting with outsiders. The first argument for outsourcing is that it allows you as a business owner to do more of what you love while assigning unwanted tasks to someone else. But outsourcing can create greater problems, and you can construct your business in a way in which few of these tasks are actually needed in the first place. More than once, I've heard from colleagues who say they have a fantastic virtual assistant they'd be happy to recommend to me. Then, weeks or months later, I hear they're looking for a new one. What happened to so and so? I ask. Well, they were great, at first. But then the process broke down, balls were dropped, and we had to part ways. This is a recurring story, told many ways but with the same end result. There are certainly exceptions, but many capable people who work as virtual assistants often end up deciding they'd rather be running their own show. If you have to spend your time correcting problems caused by the team created to support you, the team hasn't really improved your life. Meanwhile, it's clear that others have definitely benefited from harnessing the get other people to do your stuff wave. With such divergent opinions, how do you know which path to follow? Thankfully, it's not that complicated. The answer to the question of whether outsourcing is a good fit depends on two things: 1, the specific business, and 2, the personality of the business owner. Many of the problems people experience with outsourcing, on both sides, can be avoided by having a clear understanding of the responsibilities that a contractor or assistant will have. In a business that relies on a series of relatively mindless, repetitive tasks, for example, outsourcing may be a good option. A business that relies on customer relationships, however, may not be a good fit. Your own personality also matters, because if you're building a freedom business, you want to find the best possible solution to match your vision of freedom. For some people, that involves traveling the world on a low overhead operation, with the money from the business primarily going to support the owner. Other people want to stay in one place and build a team, creating a business that will outlast themselves. In the end, the best answer to the outsourcing question is the same as many others: do what makes sense for you, not for someone else. Barter, family help, and house cleaning. Before we move on, let's look at a couple of other forms of getting help. My entire business is a product of extremely beneficial trades, says Brooke Snow, who traded music lessons for photography lessons before going on to teach photography herself. She also traded for website design, video footage, and tech support. These trades have saved me tens of thousands of dollars and have not only transformed my business but are in many ways some of the very reasons I have a business. It has allowed me to operate completely debt-free with low financial investment, low overhead, and a high rate of return. Several respondents mentioned that other tasks were outsourced to family members. After every $1,000 milestone in Eleanor Meyerhofer's stationery business, she makes a special dinner for her husband, who helps out with bookkeeping and programming. Natalie Lucy mentioned that hiring a house cleaner made a big difference in her productivity. Although that might seem trivial, she wrote, it was actually key to realizing how important it is not to try to do it all myself all the time. Jonathan Pincus wrote in with a last-minute correction to his earlier comments on outsourcing. He wanted to note that his mother gets the mail twice a week in England and then scans it to forward it electronically. The business audit. However it is structured, a good business needs nurturing and continuous improvement. As your project grows, take some time to look at each aspect of it, especially any public communication that customers review while making a purchasing decision. Answer these questions and think about how you can improve. The goal is to 1. Fix little problems and 2. Identify small actions you can take that will create significant results over time. Where do you make money? Once a business gets up and running, it's very easy to get trapped in all kinds of things that have nothing to do with making money. The solution is simple: focus on the money. In the audit, you'll want to look at where the money comes from and determine what you can do to keep it coming. Sometimes new opportunities present themselves, sometimes there's an easy fix you can make to turn on another tap. If you have a range of projects, products, or activities, it's almost always better to devote your efforts to the strong performers than to try and pull up the weak ones. Most people do the opposite, but if your goal is for everything to be average, that's the best you'll ever get. How good is your messaging? The marketing materials you use, whether online or offline, probably involve some use of words, known as copy. Go back to the beginning and read the copy carefully. Review each page of the sales material slowly and then read it out loud. Does it still present the message that you want? What information should be culled or revised? Are your prices what they should be? When was the last time you raised your prices? You can have a sale or give out discount codes from time to time, but like all businesses, you should also plan on raising your prices on a regular basis as well. Always remember that trying to price for everyone is a business death trap. Since business owners live or die by the free market system, the way you decide whether your pricing is fair is by asking another question: are people buying what you sell? If the answer is yes, you're on the right track. If it is no, you have a problem. How are you marketing to existing customers? One of the best things you can do is reach out to existing customers and find a way to meet more of their needs. As part of this examination, you should check your post-purchase process carefully. What happens after someone buys? Do things get sent to the right place? Does everything arrive in the buyer's inbox or physical mailbox as it should? If you sell consulting, do clients know exactly how to set up a time in your schedule after making a payment? The easier you can make all of these things, the better. Are you tracking, monitoring, or testing enough? The thing about testing is that you just don't know what's going to happen until you do it. That's why you test. Once I installed an upsell offer in which customers could get a $50 gift certificate for only $25 after making a purchase. I thought it was a killer offer, but my customers didn't think so. It was accepted only 1 out of 20 times, 5%. A good upsell can convert much better than that, so out went the gift certificate offer. Where are the big missing opportunities? Having a big opportunity doesn't mean you should pursue it. I pass up a lot of things because they aren't a good fit for my overall strategy. However, it's good to know what you're missing even if you're missing it deliberately. Keep your possibilities list updated so you can follow up when you have more time or if you need more money. In Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Erica Kosminski was a human resources professional for a pharmacy chain and a parent to 2-year-old Riley. Working long hours during the day, she traded off childcare with Riley's father, with Erica taking the weekend shift while he took the weekdays. When she was unexpectedly laid off, the shock gradually turned to relief. Erica had been thinking about starting a service company but never had the time. The goal was to operate a small transcription service, typing up the contents of conference calls, interviews, and meetings for other businesses. Erica first had the idea to provide her service in real time, attending live conferences, typing on the fly, and delivering the contents before the end of the day. She was good at the jobs she took under this arrangement, but there were 2 problems: live conference work was scarce, and it interfered with her childcare needs. Erica was worried about competing as a basic transcription service, since many other companies already performed that role. Live transcription wasn't the best differentiator, but Erica found another, adding basic formatting and a nice-looking layout to the transcriptions she delivered. Most competitors refused to do any design whatsoever, making clear that their job was just to transcribe. Many of Erica's clients were solopreneurs or other very small businesses, and not everyone had access to a graphic designer or layout person who could take over after receiving a transcription. The differentiation worked. Within 3 months of reversing course and putting out the word that she was available, Erica could no longer keep up and was ready to expand the team. Then she made another key decision: not to hire employees but only hire contractors. By building the team on a contract-only basis, she had more flexibility to increase or downsize the numbers, depending on market needs. This was important because of the way the industry works. From November to May in a recent cycle, she was completely booked up and had to recruit 17 transcriptionists serving 180 clients, plus a virtual assistant to keep everyone on track. But in the summertime, very few businesses need transcription work, so the team shrinks to 4 people. The contractors all understand that the work is cyclical and future projects aren't guaranteed. These days Erica manages the business without doing any actual transcription herself. She has created a flexible structure that allows her to respond to the market without feeling locked in or overloaded by doing it all herself. The business experienced a testing point in the fall of 2009, When Erica's daughter contracted a bad case of the flu, requiring Erica to spend almost her whole time as a caregiver for 3 weeks. It was hard to deal with on a personal level, she says, but fortunately, the team was there to back her up and most of the business clients didn't even realize she was gone. Riley recovered, and Erica went back to work, leaving her delayed on invoices but thankfully not delayed on actual income. The model of team building through contractors worked. Affiliate programs, the good, the bad, and the lifeless. You may be familiar with affiliate programs, in which merchants cooperate with partners to bring in more traffic and sales, rewarding affiliates with a cut of the earnings. Although a few other businesses had experimented with this model earlier, Amazon.com started the first mainstream associates partnership back in 1996, inviting its customers to join as revenue-sharing partners. Since then, almost every major retailer has come up with some kind of affiliate program, as have many small businesses of all kinds. You can start your own affiliate program very easily. A 4-step startup guide is available for free at 100startup.com, and this can be an easy way to franchise yourself. Do it right, and hundreds of eager affiliates will line up to promote your work. Do it better, though, and you'll create a true partnership that will bring you steady income over time no matter what else is happening in your business or the general economy. It works like this. Visitor to affiliate to merchant. There are 2 big problems with most affiliate programs. First, the merchants tend to pay very small commissions, leaving little for the affiliate who sent them the referral in the first place, and second, the affiliates tend to do no more than blindly pass over referrals. Big problems create big opportunities, so a good merchant can offer a better program by paying much higher commissions to start with but also expecting more from the affiliate. For years I paid a 51% commission to affiliates in my business under the principle that they should earn more than I do for promoting my work. At the same time, I make it clear that they'll need to do more than just slap up a link somewhere. If they want to be successful, they'll need to create a closer connection between their readers and my business. They can do that by using the products themselves, writing reviews, and offering some kind of bonus to the referrals they make. If you structure your affiliate program in a similar manner, you'll attract higher quality partners. Partnerships and outsourcing can be a good way to build some businesses, but relying on someone else doesn't always work out as planned. Let's look at a very small business that did not benefit from a contract arrangement. The rise and fall of Copley Trash Services. Spencer and Hannah Copley, ages 12 and 10, lived with their parents on board a hospital ship deployed to West Africa. 400 other adults, some with children, also lived on the ship, which spent 6 months at a time bringing surgeons and medical teams to countries such as Sierra Leone and Liberia. Living on a ship in West Africa presented a number of challenges. What might be small concerns at home quickly became real issues on an old ship deployed to a poor country. Particular to our story, everyone was responsible for taking out their own garbage, but it wasn't always an easy task. A large dumpster was located at the edge of the dock, requiring a long walk under the hot sun. Often the dumpster was full, and everyone had to keep their garbage in their small cabins until dumpster use became available again, sometimes several days later. An entrepreneur in the making, 12-year-old Spencer hit on an idea. What if he started a garbage collection service? The price was a steal. For just $1 a week, you could leave your garbage in the hall on Tuesdays and Fridays, and the tag team duo of Spencer and Hannah would be responsible for hauling it out to the dumpster. Spencer made a poster advertising the offer and tacked it to the bulletin board by the snack bar. The offer was an immediate hit, 10 customers signed up right away, and another 15 in the next few weeks. Having acquired a strong customer base, Spencer and Hannah made sure to keep their clients regularly informed with important updates. One day the dumpster was completely out of commission, and customers received a notice: "We regret to inform you that Copley Trash Services will not be open this Friday. We will perform an extra pickup on Sunday instead. Have a great day." Another time, A leaky garbage bag created difficulties for 10-year-old Hannah, so a customer notice went out titled "Important Things to Know About Your Trash." Spencer and Hannah had created recurring income of $25 a week, a substantial preteen wage that was spent in 3 ways. 10% went out as a tithe to an orphanage they had been visiting on the weekends, and 40% was put in reserve as a puppy saving fund for when they returned to their home in Washington state. The remaining 50% was used for discretionary purchases, often video games for sale on the local aftermarket and Snickers bars at the snack bar. The business hit a rough patch when Spencer and Hannah, along with their parents, went home to Washington state on a 3-month leave. They didn't want to lose their customer base while they were away, so they decided to turn the business over to 2 other children also living on the ship. Unfortunately, the new management was not nearly as diligent about the business as Spencer and Hannah. Service was intermittent, some days the trash would not be picked up at all, with no notice or explanation. Many customers opted out of their weekly subscription and returned to carrying out their own garbage again. Among the customers who stayed, bill collection and revenue declined due to administrative oversights. Without an active manager like Spencer and without a one-page partnership agreement, the business suffered greatly in the absence of its founders. Who says you're just one person? You can hire an army of virtual assistants to do your bidding. You can carefully pursue partnerships with the goal of having 1 + 1 = 3 or more. You can grow the business by reaching more prospects with the same message, or like Natalie Lucy, the raw foods witch, you can reach out to a whole different crowd while retaining your existing business. Just don't open a sandwich shop with someone else's name on it. A better way is to franchise yourself. Key point. By leveraging skills and contacts, you can be in more than one place at the same time. Strategies to do this include outsourcing, affiliate recruitment, and partnerships. Use the hub and spoke model of maintaining one online home base while using other outposts to diversify yourself. When it comes to outsourcing, decide for yourself what's best. The decision will probably come down to 2 things, the kind of business you're building and your personality. Carefully chosen partnerships can create leverage, just make sure that's what you want to do. Use the one-page partnership agreement for simple arrangements. I'm grateful to Chris Brogan for the term outposts as well as the general concept of the hub and spoke applied to building a brand. Darren Rouse and Chris Garrett also contributed to this conversation. Patrick and Rich use a good cop bad cop routine in handling their business, which relates well to their differences. Patrick was in the Peace Corps and Rich was in the Marine Corps. Patrick has kids and lives on the East Coast, Rich is childless and lives on the West Coast. I was a customer of Copley Trash Services, and one week I neglected to pay my dues. A polite note was placed on my door, "Did you forget something?" I shamefully paid up and included an extra 50 cents in late fees. 13. Going long. Nothing will work unless you do. Maya Angelou. Among the people we've met in our story thus far, a few are active risk takers, charging ahead to storm the castle, career, or finances be damned if they fail. But far more common are those who carefully take the time to build a business step by step. It's a myth that all those who choose to go it alone are type A motorcycle riders, betting it all on the success or failure of one project. Entrepreneurs are not necessarily risk takers, it's just that they define risk and security differently from the way other people do. Tsilai Pines, an Israeli-American designer who now lives in my hometown of Portland, Oregon, exemplifies the group of cautious entrepreneurs. Over the course of 8 years, she crafted a business making kibbutz, custom-designed Jewish wedding contracts. During most of that time, the business was a night and weekend project she worked on after coming home from the design studio where she was employed. With a regular paycheck from the day job, Tsilai felt safe experimenting with the business and learning as she went along. She also noticed an important side benefit to working this way. With limited hours to spend on the business, she had to make them count. Thanks to referrals from happy couples, the business grew slowly but steadily, with more orders each year. Each kitabo was a labor of love, priced at $495. As 2009 drew to a close, Tsilai felt prepared to make the leap. She gave notice to her boss and colleagues and prepared to go full-time. This was it. She had jumped. Except, the view on the other side wasn't all she had expected. The first week of freedom felt great. The second week she began to wonder, what do I do all day? I underestimated the value of having some work that was collaborative and not self-directed, she said. Over the next few months, the business earned less than expected. Orders were still coming in and the situation was far from desperate, but Tsilai felt trapped, drained of the creativity she had thrived on while starting up. The all-or-nothing paradigm was too much pressure, she continued. I'm running a creative business, but it's a creativity killer for me to define my whole income on the need to continuously deploy my creativity. It was a hard decision to make, but 6 months after leaving the design firm, she approached the owners with a proposal, how about coming back part-time? They said yes and were happy to have her. Moving back to the studio 3 days a week was the right fit. When she had left 6 months earlier, she had a lot of responsibility as the lead designer. There was no way she could stick around in a lesser role without first leaving for a while. Coming back in under the radar gave her the security of having a certain amount of fixed income while retaining the freedom of working half-time on her other projects. Also, Tsilai now worked as a contractor instead of an employee, and that gave her an unexpected but important sense of still earning all her income on her own, with roughly half coming from the studio and half from her business. It was right for her to leave, and it was right to go back. The business is still profitable, but without the pressure of needing to rely on it exclusively. Tsilai summarizes it like this: the feeling I have is that I'm still laying brick after brick. The different pieces interlock, and over time they may build to critical mass. But right now I'm in a good place. The choice. Tsilai's story illustrates the real challenge that befalls almost everyone with the opportunity to make a major career change and go it alone, finding a way to build systemization into the business, and deciding what role the business will play in the rest of their lives. Sooner or later, every successful business owner, accidental or otherwise, faces a choice: where are we going with this thing? As described throughout the book, many of the members of our group made a deliberate decision to stay small, creating a freedom business for the purpose of having the freedom. Others chose to grow by carefully recruiting employees and going all in. Here's how 3 people face this critical choice, resolving it in different ways. Option 1, stay small. No one is truly a born entrepreneur, but Cherie Verd probably comes close. Working on her own since she was 20, she's now 38 and has never looked back. Her father was also an entrepreneur, starting the family software business that Cherie eventually took over. The company develops custom software solutions for healthcare providers. In 2007 she hit the road with Chris Dunphy, her partner, and they traveled by RV across America. Being on the road while running a software company led to an obvious expansion. Cherie and Chris started a side business making mobile apps. Business is good, but Cherie has purposely declined to pursue a number of expansion ideas. Here's how she puts it: without a doubt, the smartest decision I made was to set a specific intention to not grow the business. Growing up as the daughter of an entrepreneur, I watched my father's creativity and inventor mindset get sapped as the business grew from just him to over 50 employees. The stress wore him down and diminished his quality of life. When I last spoke to Cherie, she was on the island of St. John, where she and Chris had settled in for a stay of a few months, maybe longer, or as long as we feel like it. Cherie earns a good income of at least $50,000 a year but is insistent that the money isn't the point. My feeling of being a successful business owner is based on the quality of life I lead, not the amount of money I earn, she says. I own my business. The business doesn't own me. Option 2, go medium. In the SoDo area of downtown Seattle, a factory hums with the sound of sewing machines. Chinese American women, many of whom have worked at the factory for years, diligently apply patches to backpacks and laptop bags. I tour the factory with Tom Ben, the owner, and his business partner, Darcy Gray. With more than 20 employees and his own factory, Tom isn't afraid of growth. But he turned his back on the biggest growth opportunity of all, distributing his popular bags through big-name retailers, many of which have asked repeatedly for partnerships. I was curious about this decision, so I sent Tom and Darcy an email later to ask for more input. Here's what they said. We chose to be our own manufacturer and direct retailer initially because it's more interesting. We get to march to our own drummer, so to speak. If the goal is simply to make money, well, that's just boring. We wanted to make a cool business, with cool products, cool customers, and cool employees. We wanted to build a brand and a long-term place in the world. To sell to mass-market retailers may or may not be lucrative, but it does little for brand identity. It can also tie your fortune to a company over which you have no control. If they go down, you may go too. Our future is tied to what we do, decisions we make, and that's wicked good fun. Marching to your own drummer is certainly interesting, and as Tom pointed out in another conversation, it may be a better business model as well. Cash flow for their business comes from many individual customers, so they never have to worry about one big store dropping their inventory, or defaulting on their debt. Because there's only one source, Tom Ben bags are well positioned against being perceived as a commodity. Tom and Darcy are able to charge a good price for the bags and ensure that they can continue to support all the employees. When asked about any bad days or negative experiences in the business, Tom said something I've been thinking about ever since. All the bad days have two things in common: you know the right thing to do, but you let somebody talk you out of doing it. At least in this case, Tom never let himself get talked out of what was clearly the right thing for him. Option 3, split the difference. Sometimes the choice between small and big has more than two answers. A creative individual can learn her lessons about the wrong kind of growth and then apply them to the right kind. Meet Jessica Reagan Salzman, owner of a one-person bookkeeping shop in Attleboro, Massachusetts. I knew Jessica was a numbers person when she provided estimated income for the next year of exactly $110,899. Many entrepreneurs are lost in the bigger picture and aren't certain about their finances. They tended to answer my questions about income projections with statements like about 100, maybe 150 or so. With Jessica, there was no need for follow-up. Ironically, Jessica started the business after an unsettling experience at a new job she had just taken for a CPA. As she was settling into the job, she kept tallying figures and wondering why something wasn't balancing properly. She finally figured it out: not only was the firm in trouble, it wouldn't have enough to pay her when the very first bookkeeping cycle came around. Oops. Jessica quit and decided to go it alone. Right from the beginning, the business was profitable at a decent part-time level, and Jessica was focused on raising a family without worrying about making a ton of money. But one day, her husband, Michael, called and said he was coming home early. "That's nice," she said. "Any special occasion?" There was a pause before he told her the rest of the news. He had been laid off, effective immediately. Jessica's business had been successful as a side project, but it didn't make nearly enough money to support a family, with their second child just 3 weeks old at that point. After the shock wore off, they talked about options, and Jessica decided to take the business to a higher level. Her husband became the primary caregiver at home, and Jessica went to work. The business quickly grew and all was well under the new arrangement, but then it started growing too fast. "We had made major progress in the direction of growing revenues," she said, "but we had also experienced soaring costs, and our bottom line clearly reflected the necessity for a major change. I just assumed that's what you were supposed to do," she continued. "As the business improves, you hire people. Right? Unfortunately, Although hiring people can sometimes help a business grow, it always creates much higher costs and fixed obligations. Jessica made more changes, switching her business to a sole proprietorship and returning to a one-woman shop *. Don't be a firefighter, work on your business. Regardless of which path you take, as your project grows in scope, you can find yourself spending all your time responding to things and little time actually creating anything. The solution to this common problem is to focus on working on your business as opposed to in it. When you're operating the business, you spend time putting out fires and keeping everything running as it should. Working on the business requires a higher level approach. Every morning, set aside 45 minutes without internet access. Devote this time exclusively to activities that improve your business, nothing that merely maintains the business. Think forward motion. What can you do to keep things moving ahead? Consider these areas. Business development. This is work that grows the business. What new products or services are in the works? Are there any partnerships or joint ventures you're pursuing? Offer development. This kind of work involves using existing resources in a new way. Can you create a sale, launch event, or new offer to generate attention and income? Fixing long-standing problems. In every business, there are problems that creep up that you learn to work around instead of addressing directly. Instead of perpetually ignoring these issues, use your non-firefighting time to deal with the root of the problem. Health insurance. In the United States, it's the big question facing many prospective entrepreneurs: how can I insure my family when I'm self-employed? Canadians and others can skip this section and breathe easy. Unfortunately, universal health care is still a long way off before we catch up with the rest of the developed world. To get some options, I surveyed our group of case studies, those from the US, and also conducted several online conversations with large groups on Twitter and Facebook. The answers varied considerably. Someone wrote, "Get screwed and pay a lot of money for coverage that doesn't help you." Alas, in some cases, that statement may not be much of a stretch. But in other cases you have choices. Here are some of the most common ones. Buy a high-deductible policy and pay cash for visits to the doctor. Perhaps the most common solution among the self-employed is to shop around and purchase a high-deductible policy to cover serious illness or accident. Then set aside a savings fund, either self-managed or with a health savings account, HSA, to cover doctor's visits and preventive care. It's best to compare quotes from an independent broker, and in some cases a local or national group may offer a discounted policy. Several people mentioned the Freelancers Union, for example. Join a concierge program. A concierge program is the opposite of a high-deductible policy that covers only serious problems. For a monthly fee, $150 to $300 on average, you can visit the same doctor for most primary and preventive needs. You'll also get the doctor's email address and call anytime cell phone number, and the doctor will act as an advocate and referrer if you need more serious care. Some people combine a concierge program with another policy to ensure that both short-term and disaster prevention needs are met. Get insured through your partner. A number of business owners wrote to tell me that they relied on their spouse or partner's job to cover both of them while they worked full-time or part-time in the business. Courtney Carver was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2006, and her medical bills would be $8,000 a month without insurance. "I feel fortunate that my husband works for a company that has group insurance," she says. "For now, starting a business together with him leaving his job is not an option because of my medical condition. We are looking at other out-of-state options for the future but are tied to his job for the insurance for now. Of course, this option isn't available to you if you're single or if your partner doesn't have a job that provides insurance benefits, but if you do have the option, it may very well be the best one. Stay on COBRA as long as possible. If you have lost your job, COBRA allows you to continue receiving the same health care coverage for a certain length of time at the same price your former employer paid. You have to pay for it, but because it originally was based on a group rate, the cost is often lower, and coverage may be better than that of any plan you could purchase yourself. Several people spoke of extending COBRA coverage for up to 3 years as they built their businesses. Self-insure or use an HSA. My healthcare plan involves prayer, vitamins, and avoiding sharp objects, Amy Oscar told me on Twitter. Others explained that they were just being pragmatic about the poor options available to them, weighing the costs and what they perceived as limited benefits of an expensive plan they weren't likely to use. If you have a family or healthcare issues, you may not be comfortable with this option. Pricing review. As discussed in Chapter 11, you should review your prices regularly to determine whether a price increase is in order. In addition, consider adding appropriate upsells, cross-sells, or other income-generating tools to your arsenal. Customer communication. This involves not just dealing with emails or general inquiries, but initiating communication through newsletters and updates. A key rule for all these activities is to initiate, not respond. Doing this for just 45 minutes a day can bring huge rewards even when everything else is crazy and you spend the rest of the day putting out fires. Onward. Monitoring your business. Regardless of your growth strategy, you'll want to pay attention to the health of your business. The best way to do this is with a two-pronged strategy. Step 1, select 1 or 2 metrics and be aware of them at any given time, focusing on sales, cash flow, or incoming leads. Step 2, leave everything else for a bi-weekly or monthly review where you delve into the overall business more carefully. Some members of our group were much more diligent about tracking metrics than others, with a number of people talking about being obsessive over data and others saying they had no idea about what was happening in the business. My opinion on this approach: personalities and skill sets vary, but be wary of delegating all financial knowledge to someone else. Having no idea about money stuff is usually a bad sign. The metrics you want to track will vary with the kind of business. Here are a few of the most common examples. Sales per day: how much money is coming in? Visitors or leads per day: how many people are stopping by to take a look or signing up for more information? Average order price: how much are people spending when they order? Sales conversion rate: what percentage of visitors or leads become customers? Net promoter score: what percentage of customers would refer your business to someone else? Some businesses choose more specific metrics. Brandy Agerbeck, the graphic facilitator we met in Chapter 7, earns her living through corporate and nonprofit bookings. Every year she needs a certain amount of bookings, so she keeps a set of index cards to track this number. When the index cards fill up, she knows she's good for a while and can focus on other things. Once or twice a month it's good to take a deeper look at the business and record some metrics that should be improving over time. The kinds of things you'll probably be interested in are more detailed sales figures, site traffic, and social media, and the growth of the business. You can get a free spreadsheet to help with this process in the online resources for this book at 100startup.com. Built to sell: going really long. John Warrelow built and sold 4 companies before retiring to write, speak, and invest. After learning his lessons through those 4 experiences, he now advocates a specific model for owners of small companies who wish to sell their business one day. Most of John's recommendations relate to the need to create an actual company or organization that can thrive outside the business owner's specific skills. In other words, the built-to-sell model is different from the model we've looked at in this book. Many of our case studies involve people who went into business for themselves because it was fun, not because they wanted to build something and then cash out. However, John's recommendations are solid for owners who want to pass a business on, and some of them can be adapted to improve a business even if you want to stick around. You can see how the 2 models compare in the table below. Built to sell $100 startup comparison. Required capital. Built to sell. Variable but often high. $100 startup. Variable but usually low. Employees. Built to sell. Required. $100 startup. Optional. Freedom payoff. Big payday. $100 startup. No big payday. Secondary benefit. Build to sell. Build and more on. $100 startup. Do what you love. In trying to decide which path to pursue, the simple question to answer is, what kind of freedom do you want? John's model is all about creating an entity apart from yourself and then selling it for a big payday. The $100 startup model is more about transitioning to a business or independent career that is based on something you love to do, in other words, something intrinsically related to the owner's skill or passion. Neither model is better, it just depends on your goals. If you'd like to have the option of selling your business one day, John's point is that you have to plan for it by taking specific steps. The most important step in creating an independent identity for the business is to create a product or service with the potential to scale. This is an important distinction from many of the businesses we've described thus far, so let's take a look at how John explains it. A scalable business is built on something that is both teachable and valuable. A CPA provides a highly valuable service, but it isn't easily teachable. She can't just bring someone into her practice and hand it over to him. On the other hand, you can teach someone how to bus tables at a restaurant in a few minutes, but that isn't a valuable service. Lots of people can bus tables. Therefore, a business that has the potential to be sold easily for a high profit offers something at the intersection of teachable and valuable. John built a subscription service that conducted financial research and provided a series of informative reports. This was highly valuable to his clients but also teachable to other employees. Another time he built a firm that produced consumer focus groups for big companies, again, a highly valuable service, but also replaceable under new ownership. The solutions found by Tsili, Cherie, Tom, Jessica, and John varied considerably. In implementing their solutions, each of them said yes to something while saying no to something else. Tom declined to accept the deals from big box retailers, but he wasn't afraid to hire employees and grow on his own terms. Cherie preferred to keep things small and intimate. Tsili found security by growing her business and working as a contractor for her former employer. What united these different experiences was a sense of controlling their own destiny and finding freedom in nurturing a meaningful project. As your own project grows, you'll also need to make decisions based on your preferences and specific vision. Just remember that these are good decisions to make and a good position to be in. Key point. There's more than one road to freedom, and some people find it through a combination of different working arrangements. Going long by pursuing growth and deciding to stay small are both acceptable options, and you can split the difference by going medium. It all depends on what kind of freedom you'd like to achieve. Work on your business by devoting time every day to activities specifically related to improvement, not just by responding to everything else that is happening. Regularly monitor one or two key metrics that are the lifeblood of your business. Check up on the others monthly or bi-monthly. A business that is scalable is both teachable and valuable. If you ever want to sell your business, you'll need to build teams and reduce owner dependency. Jessica's business is called Heart-Based Bookkeeping, and she likes to call herself a sole proprietor, someone who is emotionally and spiritually invested in her work. See freelancersunion.org. Others mentioned ehealthinsurance.com and similar sites that offer an instant comparison of rates and plans for any state. 14. What if I fail? How to succeed even if your roof caves in on you. Your time is limited, so don't waste it. Living someone else's life. Steve Jobs. Almost everyone we've met in the book so far has some kind of failure to success story. In many cases, the story is about a product launch that fell flat, a partnership gone wrong, or the loss of motivation for the wrong project. I tried something and it didn't work out, but then I moved on to something else is a common refrain. All these stories are valid and interesting, but I've never heard a rise from the ashes story quite as compelling as that of John T. Unger, a sculpture artist from a small town in Michigan. John's story is a tour de force of failure and fear that turned into resilience and success. As John tells it, the third best thing that ever happened to him was having the roof of his studio collapse from under him while he was standing on it, frantically trying to shovel snow. The building was completely destroyed, and John spent the rest of the Michigan winter alternating between shivering while he worked and warming himself with an illegal unvented kerosene heater. It was a nightmare scenario, but then a funny thing happened. The bank came out to assess the damage and gave him a $10,000 commission. John used the commission as a down payment on 2 buildings he had been trying to purchase for a while. "I don't think the bank would have gone for the deal without the disaster," he says. "It forced them to take a real look at my business instead of them just thinking of me as another broke artist." The second best thing that ever happened to John was losing his last day job as a graphic designer during the dot-com crash of 2000. The loss of the job led to the loss of everything else: his income, his girlfriend, his apartment, and even a piece of his thumb in an accident incurred while he was moving out of the apartment. While he was working the day job, 7 days a week in 1999, 7 days total in 2000, he also was working as much as 10 hours a day on his art business. After both of these experiences, losing the building and losing the day job, John was depressed and thought hard about what to do next. His friends advised him to suck it up and find work wherever he could, but in rural Michigan those days, John knew that there wasn't much work to be found. It was now or never, so he stuck with his goal and continued making progress. The best thing that ever happened to John, as he tells the story, was a late-night disagreement with a crazed cab driver, who pulled him into the back room of a diner and held a gun to his head for a full 10 minutes, screaming and threatening to pull the trigger. John finally escaped and walked out into another cold Michigan night, sweating, trembling, and glad to be alive. "I get it," John yelled at the sky as he hobbled away. "I'm just so lucky." You don't really worry about the small things after that, John says now. Everything takes on a whole other level of meaning. Unwanted advice and unneeded permission. Much of this book contains various forms of advice, but don't confuse advice for permission. You don't need anyone to give you permission to pursue a dream. If you've been waiting to begin your own $100 startup, or anything else, stop waiting and begin. Charlie Pabst, a Seattle-based designer who left the corporate world to go it alone, said that the best thing he did was learn to ignore advice, even from friends who meant well. "My business and the life I lead now would never have happened had I not been obnoxiously stubborn to my own will," he said. The fact is that the majority of people don't own their own businesses. And a certain percentage of that majority will not be happy or supportive about your exiting the 9-to-5 world. While usually well-meaning, unsolicited advice from people who think they know better can be unnecessary and distracting. Here's how Shea Vitry, the founder of a Denver food tour business, puts it. "The biggest lesson I learned was to trust my own judgment. When I started my tour business, I got all sorts of advice from people around me, ranging from why it wouldn't work at all to how things should be run on a day-to-day basis. I had researched it and knew it was a viable idea, so I decided to keep my own counsel and quit asking people what they thought. People who know less about the business than me do not get to make decisions about it. I value input, but now I seek it out from people who have unique perspectives about how I can improve. Sometimes the best advice is none at all. If you know what you need to do, the next step is simply to do it. Stop waiting. Start taking action. What are we afraid of?" Toward the end of many follow-up discussions with most of the business owners profiled in the book, I asked about their biggest fears, worries, or concerns. All these people had been successful, earning at least $50,000 a year from their projects. Many were earning much more, but what were they worried about? What kept them up at night? Their concerns fit into 2 broad areas, external and internal. External concerns tended to relate to money and a changing marketplace. For example, a few businesses had been created to exploit imbalances in technology. These projects can be very profitable for a time, but when the music stops playing, The ride is over. A business that grows primarily from strong Google rankings or good placement in the iTunes Store, favored by the gods of Apple, as one person put it, is in danger of losing it all if fortunes change. Scott McMurrin, who published the Alaska Coupon books, said he was closely watching the online coupon craze, considering ways to update the business to be more digital friendly. The role of competition was mentioned frequently, although in very different ways. Several people said they weren't worried about what other businesses were doing, because they found it more productive to keep moving forward with their own original work. Others did worry, especially about building something unique only to see it copied or stolen by a more established company. Marianne Cascone, who makes children's clothing in a small partnership she runs with her cousin, illustrated this concern well. Our biggest fear, since the beginning, is that our products will be knocked off and our prices will be undercut. We are covered by patents and trademarks, but it still happens from time to time. However, I am a firm believer that if I focus 100% on creating a quality product, we will rise to the top every time. We do not get sidetracked on other projects, we focus on keeping our customers extremely satisfied. There is still a chance that I will walk into Target and see my design on their shelf under another company's name. We are just hoping to have a place in that market so they are truly competing with us and not stealing from us. Those who had expanded by hiring employees tended to worry about making sure they had enough cash flow and recurring income to keep the payroll going. If you own a solo shop and business tightens up, you may be able to tighten up along with it. But if you owe people a fixed amount of money on a fixed schedule, you can't do that. One business produced more than $2 million in annual revenue but earned only $60,000 in net income for the owner, in large part because of the high overhead of employing people and investing in infrastructure. Holly Minch mentioned the Goldilocks principle, the idea that success is found within certain margins and not at the extremes. I want the clients to get real value out of what we deliver, she said, but not at the expense of our bottom line. And I want the team to have enough work to live well but not so much work that we're not living. Others worried about faking it or needed to keep the wheels rolling after the initial passion faded away. My biggest fear is that my consulting and writing becomes mediocre, said Allison Stanfield in Colorado. Success seems to be the ability to keep going, to keep the doors open, said Lee Williams Deming in Costa Rica. Be careful of letting clients take your business in a direction that makes you hate your job, said Britta Alexander, one half of the husband and wife team running a marketing company in Hastings-on-Hudson, New York. The further you go down that road, the harder it will be to correct course. And it's really hard to quit your job when it's your own company. Digging deeper, the fears and worries were more closely related to issues of identity. I love my work, someone said, but what if I love only the work, or what if the thing I love is no longer fun because now it's all work? Statements like these usually were followed by clarifying ones such as starting this business, no matter the eventual outcome, has been worth the energy, effort, and sacrifices it has taken thus far to get it off the ground. One of our case studies, a Canadian manufacturer, said, I used to be afraid to fail. I wanted concrete numbers telling me that we weren't going to lose before I took the leap. But if nobody was going to die, even in the absolute worst case scenario, then what the hell was I so afraid of? I've never looked back. A European designer was even more dramatic. Do you want to know the honest truth? In the early days, I almost expected my business to be a failure. I believed that it had to be that way because it is the first business I have ever run, and I know the biggest successes have the biggest failures behind them. It sounds perverse, but I almost wanted it to fail so I could look back and say, yep, that one failed, but I learned from it. Fortunately or not, his business is doing just fine. The moment they knew. As I reviewed thousands of pages of survey data and made countless follow-up calls, I learned to ask people if the decision to start their business had been worth it. You might think that such a question is simplistic. Wouldn't most responses be yes? Well, perhaps, but one of the best parts of the study was hearing exactly how a group of diverse people answered this question. There was usually a story behind the affirmative answer, and the story often related to a particular day, event, or moment when they knew their business was going to work. As we come to the end of this journey, I thought you should hear from a few of them directly. Gary Leff. Book your award. Fairfax, Virginia. I never thought that people would pay for the service that I offer, so the very first time I received a check in payment for services from my very first client, it hit me like a ton of bricks. There's real money on the table here. And when I saw a letter from that very first customer published in a magazine recommending my service, I realized that there was both appreciation and demand for what I was offering. Karen Starr. Hazel Tree Interiors. Akron, Ohio. Even with our excellent credit history, 2010 was a bad time in banking to ask for money. We didn't need much, but we couldn't swing it completely on our own. My husband John and I needed a small credit line to lease the building where we planned to house our interior design and framing business. Unfortunately, the bank said no. Later that day, John was on the phone with the landlord of the building, telling him that we just weren't going to be able to make it work and that he could release the building to the other interested party. As I heard him saying those words on the phone, I had an incredible surge of hope, and I remember shouting, "John, no. We have to give it another shot. Tell him we just need a few more days to try again. We'll have to go back into the bank and make them hear us out. If they'll just sit down and listen, they will believe in us." It totally worked. The bank did hear our plea, and we eventually got what we needed to get going. 2 years in, and we couldn't be more thrilled. But we almost accepted the fact that it wasn't meant to be and carried on with our lives. I am so glad we put in more effort. It meant everything to us to give it one more passionate plea. David Fugate. Launchbooks Literary Agency. Encinitas, California. For me it was when I signed a big client after flying out to their corporate offices, making a pitch, and getting a tour of the grounds. When I got the call from his marketing VP that they wanted to go with me over a couple other agents they had met, that was the moment when I knew Launchbooks was going to work. Truth be told, I didn't even know that I had any doubts about it working before that call, because I had been an agent for more than 12 years already and knew what I was doing. But because of the way my employment worked at the old agency, I literally had to leave with nothing, no income stream whatsoever from the 1,000 books I had sold while I was there, so I was literally starting from scratch. But when I got that call, I had this enormous feeling of relief and excitement wash over me, and I just absolutely knew it was going to work. The funny thing was that the client ended up being an unbelievable jerk and pulled out of his book deal over repeated problems with the publisher. He didn't like a mock cover that they put together and their preference that he actually follow the proposal we had sent them for the content, so rather than trying to work anything out, he just decided the publisher didn't get it and pulled out. Then a little while later he had his assistant send me a termination letter without so much as a conversation, even though I had managed to generate a decent offer for what was a brutally difficult book to sell. It didn't matter, though. I still had that first moment on the phone and never looked back. I've since been on my own and selling books for more than 10 years. Kyle Hepp. Independent photographer. Santiago, Chile. My husband and I were traveling around Europe after I had been hit by a car. We were going to travel and then go back to Chile to shoot weddings until the bookings stopped coming in and then go back to having normal jobs. We had been couch surfing to try and save money, but after a month and a half on the road I was sick of it. So we decided to splurge in Italy. We checked into an amazing room at the Meridian, and I decided to pay an ungodly amount to use the internet for 10 minutes. And that was when I saw the email. It would be our second US wedding and our first wedding where I had quoted more than simply travel costs. The bride had decided to hire us, and she was going with our biggest package, over $5,000. I freaked out. I called my mom and then I called my dad, screaming stupidly using the hotel phone, which ended up costing another $100. I should have paid for another 10 minutes of the internet and used Skype. I wasn't freaking out because of the money, though. It was because for a bride to pay that amount of money to photographers who don't even live in her country requires a huge leap of faith. And that was when I realized that if there was one bride willing to hire us and fly us in, there were probably more. And I started to think that if we could work both in Chile and outside of Chile, we could make this work. So we did. Jonathan Pincus. The Tapas Lunch Company. Spain and Norwich, United Kingdom. The big day for us was August 20, 2008, also known as the day when we realized our dream of moving back to my partner's native Spain. When we set up the company in England in 2005, it was with the aim of eventually being able to move back to Spain and run the business remotely, although we weren't sure how long this would take. We had set up a perfect infrastructure, with cloud-based business management software, VoIP telephones, and so on, but the logistics of outsourcing was proving the biggest hurdle. We couldn't find a company that could deal with the complexity of 250 different products, most of which were labeled in Spanish. When we finally managed to set up the contracted logistics operation and drove away from the warehouse knowing that we no longer had to do all the shipping ourselves and that the following day we were getting on a boat to Spain, I knew we had achieved what we set out to do. As I traveled the world meeting our group of unexpected entrepreneurs, I heard story after story like these. Over and over, they echoed a similar theme: when you have these moments, hold on to them. They provide encouragement and positive reinforcement when times are hard. The $100 recap. Before we close it out, let's look back at the key lessons of this book. First and most important, the quest for personal freedom lies in the pursuit of value for others. Get this right from the beginning and the rest will be much easier. Always ask, how can I help people more? Borrowing money to start a business, or going into debt at all, is now completely optional. Like many of the people you met in this book, you can start your own micro-business for $100 or less. Focus relentlessly on the point of convergence between what you love to do and what other people are willing to pay for. Remember that most core needs are emotional. We want to be loved and affirmed. Relate your product or service to attractive benefits, not boring features. If you're good at one thing, you're probably good at something else. Use the process of skill transformation to think about all the things you're good at, not just the obvious ones. Find out what people want, and find a way to give it to them. Give them the fish. There is no consulting school. You can set up shop and charge for specialized help immediately. Just remember to offer something specific and provide an easy way to get paid. Some business models are easier than others to start on a budget. Unless you have a compelling reason to do something different, think about how you can participate in the knowledge economy. Action beats planning. Use the one-page business plan and other quick start guides to get underway without waiting. Crafting an offer, hustling, and producing a launch event will generate much greater results than simply releasing your product or service to the world with no fanfare. The first $1.26 is the hardest, so find a way to get your first sale as quickly as possible. Then work on improving the things that are working, while ignoring the things that aren't. By franchising yourself through partnerships, outsourcing, or creating a different business, you can be in more than one place at the same time. Decide for yourself what kind of business you'd like to build. There's nothing wrong with deliberately staying small. Many of the subjects of our stories did exactly that, or scaling up in the right way. It only gets better as you go along. When we last left off, Jamestown Coffee Company was opening for business in Lexington, South Carolina. Owner James Kirk had moved south from Seattle and kicked things off. What happened next? Did a flood of loyal visitors show up right away? Not exactly. It was a tough start, settling into a community not familiar with specialty coffee. The shop grew one customer at a time, with a focus on providing personal experiences and encouraging repeat business. One weekend, James and his crew gave out coupons for a free coffee at a local golf tournament. A man stopped in to redeem his coupon and mentioned that he normally picked up his morning cup at the gas station but was inspired to try something new. The next day he returned, saying it was the best cup of coffee he had ever had. A morning group began to gather most weekdays, consisting of regulars from all kinds of backgrounds: a lawyer, a clergyman, a computer guy, a mechanic. People who used to buy instant coffee at the grocery store began making a special trip every week to pick up the superior stuff at Jamestown Coffee Company. Slowly but surely, the business stabilized. James thought back on the discouragement he had received from well-meaning friends when he first told them about moving down south. "You can't start a business during a recession," they said. "You can't move across the country without a job. Most small businesses fail within 1 year. Almost all mom and pop restaurants fail within the first year." On and on it went. And every time someone gave him a reason he couldn't succeed in what he had set out to do, he made another note in his non-planning folder, merely one more obstacle to overcome. Elsewhere, Jen and Omar continued making their maps in Columbus, Ohio, expanding to wholesale accounts in addition to the direct sales with which they started. They were featured recently in an Expedia commercial and are thinking about opening up a boutique travel store as part of the next adventure. Carol Gajda and Adam Baker produced 2 other mega sales, each one bringing in a 6-figure payday for themselves and their affiliates. I asked for their help in producing the launch for this book just as soon as they finished carrying the bags of cash to the bank. Brandon Pierce was planning a family move to Malaysia. The business now brings in over $50,000 a month. Benny Lewis was still language hacking his way around the world, moving to Istanbul for a crash course in Turkish. Next up, a planned attempt at learning Mandarin Chinese in Taiwan. The Mondo Beyond course started by Andrea Skur and Jen Lemon has served more than 5,000 participants, producing $500,000 in revenue for the 2 partners. Brett Kelly's $120,000 ebook has become a $160,000 ebook. His wife continues to stay at home with the kids, and they are now completely debt-free. Perhaps the most important lesson arrived in an email from Emily Cavalier, who had recently left a high-paying job in Manhattan to pursue Mouth of the Border, a tour and events business focused on ethnic foods. I asked how often she still felt motivated to go it alone, and she told me, every single day. The greatest benefit has been going to bed just as excited as if not more excited than when I woke up. I get to work day in, day out on something that fully engages me and elicits not just my passions but the passion of tons of other people, too. Yes, like Emily and everyone else in this book, you can do this too. You aren't alone out there. Sure, you can learn through failure, and most likely you'll have at least one false start on the road to freedom. But failure is overrated. Who says you'll fail? You can just as easily succeed. You can apply the lessons from these stories and create the new life you want. Ray. Key point. Advice can be helpful, but you can also just step out and take a big leap. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. More than competition or other external factors, the biggest battle is against our own fear and inertia. Thankfully, this also means we are in complete control of managing it. When you have a success or moment you new story, hold on to it. These experiences are powerful and will help you later if times get hard. The most important lesson in the whole book: don't waste your time living someone else's life. Coda. The story about freedom and value doesn't end in the Western world. These themes are just as important in helping people create opportunities for themselves wherever they are. In many parts of Africa and Asia, more people work as buyers and sellers in the informal economy than work as employees for someone else. They may not all be professional bloggers or mobile application developers, yet, but they earn their living through the principles outlined in this book. In Phnom Penh, Cambodia, I met a tuk-tuk driver named Rhett. Tuk-tuks are the open-air taxis of Southeast Asia in which you can ride anywhere in the city for $1 or $2. Some tuk-tuk drivers, just like some cab drivers in other places around the world, are unreliable and dishonest. Rhett, however, is both reliable and honest, always arriving early to pick up a passenger and sometimes delivering regular customers to their destinations at no charge. Most tuk-tuk drivers in Cambodia make just $2 to $5 a day, but Rhett earns up to $50 a day. He does this through a combination of hard work and careful strategy. The hard work comes by not sleeping or gambling the afternoon away as many of his colleagues do. The strategy lies in understanding that he is better off by serving regular clients instead of constantly roaming the streets looking for one-time fares. While I was in town visiting a friend, Rhett made it clear that he was at my service, giving me his mobile number and telling me to call him day and night. After his core business model of serving regulars was established, Rhett created multiple streams of income by adding a sign for a popular bakery on the back of his tuk-tuk. The bakery pays him a fixed amount each month, plus a small commission for any business he brings in. He also regularly asks his customers for referrals and testimonials to increase his client base. If a customer needs help getting to a destination outside of Phnom Penh, Rhett will find a taxi or bus driver available for hire, making sure he is honest and then following up with the customer after the trip to confirm that all went well. He does all of this while speaking only limited English. I practice every day, but my tongue becomes tired, he told me, and without any formal education at all. Some of the extra money he earns goes to a savings fund, a safety net almost no other tuk-tuk driver has. His daughter is now in college, the first in their family to finish high school. As you work to improve your own circumstances, with freedom as the goal and value as the currency that gets you there, consider how these principles apply elsewhere. I like Rhett's story because it shows that creativity and initiative will get you far, regardless of the starting point. In many parts of the world, however, the starting point is much farther away than it is for most readers of this book. Starting a business in the developing world is often a difficult, highly bureaucratic endeavor, which is why so many people like Rhett operate in the informal sector. In some of these places, millions of people still lack access to clean water and other basic needs. In my own business and writing career, I invest at least 10% of all revenue with organizations that make better improvements around the world than I could make on my own. This includes the royalties for this book, so if you've purchased it, thanks for the help. I don't consider this investment a charitable act, I consider it a natural response to the fact that I've been more fortunate than others. While creating freedom for yourself, how can you be part of a global revolution to increase opportunity for everyone? If you're not sure, you can join the $100 startup community in our campaign for clean water in Ethiopia by visiting charitywater.org/ANC. You can also sign up with groups, such as kiva.org and acumenfund.org, that provide loans, usually very small ones, to help people start micro-businesses in their own communities. Of course, these answers aren't the only ones. If you have a better answer or just a different one, work on that instead. Pursue your dream of freedom wherever it leads, while also thinking about how it can intersect with creating more opportunities for people like Rhett. Disclosure and interesting facts. No business exists in a vacuum, and many of the stories told here will evolve over time. Financial information was supplied to me by those in the case studies and was current at the time of printing. We did our best to ensure accuracy with repeated fact-checking and verification, but any errors are mine. My wife, Jolie, teaches at the Happy Knit store profiled in Chapter 12. She is also responsible for several other leads to craft businesses. Jonathan Fields, Chapter 7, and Silly Pines, Chapter 13, are longtime friends. I was offered samples by some of the businesses mentioned in the study. Accepted, a bottle of California Syrup from Verge Wine, blog promotion from Evernote, and a free Empire Builder bag from Tom Bin. Declined, a jar of mustard from Sono Trading and a free Excel template from Mr. Spreadsheet. When I wasn't roaming the world conducting interviews, Much of this book was written in the following Portland cafes: Rocking Frog, Albina Press, Cremont, Stumptown, and Starbucks on 37th and Hawthorne. Most popular order at the Rocking Frog: hot cinnamon donut and 12-ounce Americano. Number of times the phrases cha-ching and whoop-whoop were removed from the manuscript during copy edits: 8. John T. Unger, Chapter 14, has revised his list of the best things that ever happened to him. He now puts meeting his wife, Marcy, another artist, at the very top of the list. They live and work in a new studio with a much sturdier roof. When next in Cambodia, you can hire Rhett the tuk-tuk driver by calling +855 12 543,767. But wait, there is more. All good things come to an end, and if you've read this far, I hope it's been a good use of your time. If you'd like more, head over to 100startup.com, where you'll find a community of other readers, unexpected entrepreneurs, and people from different backgrounds, all planning their escape to a life of their own making. In addition to all the customizable exercises from the book, the Instant Consultant Biz, the one-page promotion plan, and so on, you'll get a number of resources that didn't make it in the final version. Data and sample interviews from the study, including transcripts and audio files. Video interviews with Benny Lewis, Chapter 4, Jen and Omar, Chapter 6, and Carol Gajda, Chapter 8. Economics of blog subscribers, where you'll see how much money an average blogger earns. More analysis on subscription payments, upsells, and pricing structures you can use to ramp up your income. The 2 words all business owners can say to set themselves up for an unlimited series of long-term product launches. And as they say, so much more. All of this info is free, and you don't need to register to receive it. We also have a community forum and additional resources for sale, including more case studies and specific business strategies. Join us at 100startup.com. Finally, if you enjoyed the book, feel free to let me know. You can write in directly from chrisgilbo.com, where I follow the model outlined in several of the case studies in this book, publishing at least 80% of my writing and business work on a regular basis for free. Twitter.com/chrisgilbo. Facebook.com/artofnonconformity. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights, motivation, and book summaries.